Hi, everyone. Here today, we're going to be talking about descriptive statistics. We're going to cover the need for statistics, basic concepts in statistics, variable measurement and data types, which you may also see referred to as scale types. We're also going to cover sampling techniques, broad analytical approaches to data analysis, measures of central tendencies, and measures of variation. So what does campaign financing of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, marketing research, and decline in honeybees have in common? You probably guessed it, not much. But what they do have in common is that they're all areas in which statistics could derive information, where a statistical study could measure things, objects, people, events, processes, phenomena, even feelings, to understand patterns, to understand relationships, causation, effect, trends over time, and so on. Statistics is the study of how to collect, organize, analyze, and interpret numerical information from data. I also call it the science of counting, a quantitative approach to analysis, or the science of repeated events. And these two ideas here, counting and repeated events, is to emphasize the point that when we're dealing with statistics and quantitative analysis of this sort, we are often observing, interested in multiple occurrences. So not just one case study, not just usually a single event, but the ones that repeat themselves. And by not just the events that repeat themselves, but instances and objects such as bees, right? There are many bees, and you can study not just one single bee, but how bee populations function, move, change, and so on. The same goes for people or any other entities that is multiple in the world. And we actually use these words here kind of carefully: collect, organize, analyze, and interpret. And they really identify the various stages of statistical analysis. And the images that I have here are intended to reflect that. So in the first, there is the collection. Collection of data is an important aspect. This is the observation of the world, the identification of the bee, or the collection of the actual campaign contributions that were sent to somebody, or the observation of how people respond to an advertisement. There is the organization, and that usually will involve some kind of database or some kind of folder. I mean, back in the day, of course, it used to be paper, but nowadays we actually add information to databases which are structured in often table format, this two-dimensional format of rows and columns, which we'll be talking about. There is the analysis stage, which involves, it may involve kind of more sophisticated programming and sequencing of different types of counts or functions and data manipulation, but also maybe kind of more straightforward description of data points across time, across different variables, and related to different, even multi-dimensions. So all of these steps involve other more particular activities and functions, but these actions and processes summarize the steps that occur in any kind of statistical analysis. The main object of statistical analysis is data. And indeed, another name for statistics nowadays is data science. Although they're kind of usually separate disciplines with some distinctions. And data are the pieces of carefully and precisely acquired information. We may just call data sometimes recorded information. Often that's what we mean by data, but also more often, I think what we mean by data is the accurate and organized representation of things, processes, or any phenomena in the world. People, objects, events, feelings, chemical processes, and so on. And they're usually organized in some kind of a table-like structure like this, with rows and columns, rows of individual instances and columns of attributes. And so here are some of these concepts laid out and presented to you. So first, we often talk about individuals, and notice I highlight here the S because once again, we're talking about multiplicity. It's usually not about just the one time, the one event. It's usually the repeated pattern. But these can be not just repeated events, but repeated people or objects or any kind of instance represented in the data. A group of individuals is the sample, and all of the individuals is the population. Often the population is difficult to acquire, and sometimes you don't even know if you have the whole population because it's hard to know if you did not really catch something that escaped your observation. But sometimes it is possible because some things are very well tracked, and we try to ensure that we do have the population of something, but often we have the sample. The variables are the attributes observed in the individuals. So we'll explore more of that later. And the values. The values are the values of the attributes of the individuals, which may be quantitative or qualitative. So these are the three central concepts in data and statistics, I would say. And okay, here's just kind of repeating. So we take the phenomenon in the real world, the bees, the flowers, the whatever we're measuring, the attributes and their values, and we place them in organized fashion, usually like this. So the individuals are the unique records. So each of these is an individual, right? And so on. The variables or the attributes are listed as the columns, or also called the fields, or sometimes features. And the values. The values are the values themselves in here. Notice that the text itself can be a value. Somebody's name is a value. A year is a value. An integer, a number is a value, and so on. We call these text value or string value, and these numeric values, and we'll explore that later. Actually, we'll explore that now in the next segment on variable measurement.